The Shadows of Chonga Village. In the modern-day village of Chonga, a small but bustling community on the edge of the Kenyan countryside, life had recently been shifting. The older villagers still clung to traditions, while the younger generation embraced modernity, bringing smartphones, electric motorbikes, and a taste for city life back to their hometown. This clash of old and new values created tension, especially for those like Wanja, a young woman caught between loyalty to her heritage and her dreams of a future beyond the village. Wanja had grown up with her grandmother, Mama Mumbai, one of Chonga's most respected elders. Mama Mumbai held strong beliefs in the old ways, especially when it came to the land and the spirits believed to protect it. She told stories of creatures and ghosts that lurked in the forest beyond the village, warning Wanja and others never to venture there after dark. For years, Wanja brushed off these stories, considering them relics of a fearful past. But when Kigen, a charming and rebellious young man from the city, returned to Chonga with plans to build a resort on the village's forested land, everything changed. Kigen and Wanja had known each other as children, and there had been a spark between them even then. Now, as adults, that spark ignited into something undeniable. They spent hours together exploring the village, laughing about city life and making plans. Kigen's dream was to transform Chonga into a destination for tourists, and Wanja was drawn to his vision of a more prosperous future for their home. Yet Mama Mumbai was furious. She warned Wanja that disturbing the land would bring ruin to the village. According to legend, Chonga's forest was guarded by the Njoka, a serpent spirit that lay dormant beneath the soil, bound by a pact with the village's ancestors. Mama Mumbai insisted that if they disrupted the land, then Njoka would awaken and curse them all. Wanja, torn between her love for Kigen and her loyalty to her grandmother, tried to mediate, but Kigen dismissed the old woman's fears as mere superstition. Despite Wanja's pleas, Kigen started construction on the resort. Bulldozers cleared trees, and workers unearthed the land to lay foundations. And that's when the first strange thing happened. One evening, the sky turned a deep, unnatural shade of red. A thick, ominous fog rolled in from the forest, covering the village. People began hearing whispers, unsettling voices in a language no one could understand. At night, villagers reported seeing shadowy figures, tall and hunched, moving through the fog. A chill ran through Chonga, and soon the workers refused to stay in the forest past dusk, speaking of glowing eyes watching them from the darkness. Kigen brushed off their fears, claiming it was just a strange weather pattern. But the villagers grew increasingly terrified, and Mama Mumbai's warnings echoed louder. Desperate to protect his project, Kigen doubled down on construction, even as his relationship with Wanja became strained. She felt torn. Part of her wanted to believe Kigen, yet deep inside, the fear planted by her grandmother began to grow. One night, as the fog thickened, Wanja went searching for Kigen. She found him at the construction site, arguing with his workers who refused to keep digging. Furious, Kigen grabbed a shovel and began digging into the earth himself, determined to prove there was nothing to fear. But as he struck the ground, the fog grew denser, and the earth began to tremble. The ground cracked open, and from the depths emerged a hissing sound so cold and piercing it silenced everyone. From the fissure, a slithering, shadowy figure emerged. The Njoka, an enormous serpent with scales like obsidian, its eyes glowing a fierce green. Wanja's heart pounded as she watched in horror. The villagers fled, but Kigen, paralyzed by disbelief, stood his ground, facing the monster he had unleashed. The Njoka reared back, towering above him, as if recognizing the intruder who had disturbed its slumber. Its gaze fixed on Kigen, who seemed frozen, torn between his pride and terror. Wanja knew she had to act. She remembered Mama Mumbai's stories about the serpent, about how it could only be appeased by an offering of respect and humility. She ran back to the village and grabbed her grandmother's oldest charm, a small, worn talisman believed to hold the wisdom of their ancestors. She returned to the site, her heart racing, and held the charm high, calling out to the Njoka with all the respect and reverence she could summon. She begged it to spare Kigen and the village, offering herself as a guardian to ensure the forest would never be harmed again. The Njoka turned to her, its eyes piercing. For a moment, it seemed to consider her offer. Then it slowly coiled back into the ground, hissing softly, before vanishing into the darkness. The fog lifted, and the night air grew still. The curse had been lifted, but not without a price. Kigen, shaken by the encounter, realized the consequences of his ambition. With Wanja by his side, he decided to abandon the resort project and instead work with the villagers to find ways to benefit Chonga without disturbing its sacred lands. Their love was rekindled, but now grounded in a newfound respect for each other's values. In the end, Wanja found her place, not as someone who had to choose between tradition and change, but as a bridge between the two, helping the village move forward without forgetting its roots. And as for the Njoka, its shadow remained a quiet reminder of the power that lay beneath the earth, waiting, watching, and ready to protect its home.